With members of your own team like Yevgeny Prigozhin running their mouth, who needs to worry about the Ukrainian army? The man is a menace in so many ways and fully lives up to the mantra, "Thank God the Russians are so effing stupid." Before I continue, could I ask you to drop a like and subscribe? Prigozhin continues to lob softballs at the Ukrainian MOD whilst castigating his own side and doing everything he can to show the split in the cohesion of the Russian leadership. He is shining a light on where the Ukrainians should be focusing, splitting Wagner and the regular army completely. Boy, does this clown love the sound of his own voice. Let's cover his last two bizarrely un-Russian outbursts. His first one was with the notorious mill blogger Semyon Pegov, a dude that wouldn't be out of place on Duck Dynasty or as a banjo player in the movie Deliverance. To reiterate, what he says here isn't a major shock if you have one functioning brain cell. The issue is that admitting this in the time of a modern conventional war is extremely dangerous for your side. He admitted that losses in Bakhmut are 5 times higher than necessary because of a lack of artillery shells. This of course makes sense when you fight according to the Russian doctrine of bomb the heck out of an area then rush waves of men in to fill the void. He went even further, which literally blew my mind. Every day we have stacks of thousands of bodies that we put in coffins and send home, he said. He added that he has written to Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu asking for ammunition as soon as possible. If the ammunition deficit is not replenished, we are forced, in order not to run like cowardly rats afterwards, to either withdraw or die, he said. Adding that the withdrawal from Bakhmut would be likely, but he warned that this would mean the Russian front line would collapse elsewhere. Okay, so that's a seriously bold threat. No ammunition and we walk off the job? He must be pretty sure of his position, or the fact that he is making these statements from within Ukraine says enough. Is he too afraid to go home? In an audio statement published on the Telegram messaging app account of his press service on Saturday evening, the Wagner boss said he had lost 94 fighters due to a lack of ammunition. It would have been 5 times fewer if we had more ammunition, said Prigozhin. This is of course not the first time that he has accused the top brass of betrayal. In fact, he has done it multiple times. Previously he has even had his men stage clearly organized protests with an artillery piece cleverly placed just behind them. It's obvious that these types of statements are starting to wear thin on Putin, with reports claiming that he is looking to replace Wagner as a matter of urgency. The Institute for the Study of War, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank, reported the Wagner chief as stating that his forces have received 800 of the 4,000 shells per day that they had requested from Russia's Ministry of Defense, which is a substantial reduction in what he expected and understandably irritating situation. The problem that Putin is facing is that there simply isn't a large enough alternative. What he did do was to augment Wagner with PMC Redut troops in the northern sector of Bakhmut. They took over a section of the line near Kromova. Unfortunately for them, there was a lack of communication between the two groups and Ukrainian soldiers managed to capture the area. If you didn't know, Redut was created by Gazprom and it is subordinated to the Russian MOD, so not inclined to work with or obey Wagner commands. This follows a Ukrainian military spokesperson saying on Saturday that Russian forces had been unable to cut off its supply lines to the Ukrainian defenders of Bakhmut. For several weeks, the Russians have been talking about seizing the road of life as well as about constant fire control over it, Serhiy Chervadyai, a spokesperson for Ukrainian troops in the east, said in an interview with the local news website Zerkalo Tiznia. Yes, it is really difficult there. But the defense forces have not allowed the Russians to cut off our logistics, he said. The road of life is a vital route between ruined Bakhmut and the nearby town of Chasiv Yar to the west, a distance of just more than 10 miles. What's more, Putin has made it clear that the city must be captured by the 8th of May in time for the Soviet Victory Day parade on the 9th. So how far does the animosity exist between the commanders of the Russian MOD and Wagner? Would Prigozhin withdraw and potentially hand over Bakhmut just to spite Shoigu and other army leadership? I don't believe he will necessarily, Because I think he is a patriot and extremely passionate about his country's success. He may feel forced to act and to do so quickly just in terms of surviving this rather messy situation. This inability to cut off Bakhmut has reflected very poorly on the Russian forces, especially Wagner. These recent complaints by Prigozhin could be a form of deflection regarding their apparent impotence and lack of results from 10 months of work that has undoubtedly cost the Russian economy hundreds of millions and tens of thousands of lives. On the issue of casualties, the Pentagon has very recently released their Russian casualty figures since December 2022. The amount is an estimated 100,000 killed or wounded, with an estimated 10,000 dead allocated to Wagner. That's an astounding figure for casualties limited to one zone of operations, Bakhmut. What's more, given their difficulty they are having in recruiting, are these figures sustainable? Surely not. Some good news for Wagner, if it's even legitimate, was the recent discovery of a Ukrainian weapons stash in the Soledar mines. Mr. Wagner himself went to the scene and unveiled some pretty interesting pieces, including some immaculate Maxim machine guns. They were found at a depth of 150 meters in a 5 kilometers long gallery, containing apparently more than 300,000 boxes of weapons and ammunition. One of the comments made was that perhaps they could trade the weapons for artillery shells. If it's true, this is a massive loss for Ukraine. I would expect Prigozhin to arrange buyers for all of it and to make a fat profit. I sincerely doubt it will find its way to his depleted forces. Now obviously this couldn't be verified, but the very next day opened with a massive bombardment on Ukrainian positions, signifying that either he had been lying or he finally got his way. Sources on the ground said that the level of bombardment was bigger than anything experienced before. I have zero doubt that Bakhmut will fall eventually, not because of Wagner but despite them. They are being sucked into a Ukrainian vortex that will eventually have them thrown out of Ukraine. There's already talk of a massive opening forming in a village just outside of Krasnohora where the garrison is highly demoralized and under almost constant bombardment. Losing this area would open up the northern flank of the Bakhmut encirclement. The question that will still need to be answered is what happens to Wagner post-Bakhmut. I see them disappearing into the night and their leader taking a very high fall out of a window, as is the Russian way. I am only surprised that his forces haven't yet been nationalized and Prigozhin shipped off to a Siberian recuperation spa aka Gulag. As it stands, if I was Ukrainian, I would be doing anything in my power to increase the tension, widen the obvious split in the leadership. There are real potential benefits to doing this. Thank you for watching.